Hey, everybody. Today we're going to finish up the top 10 most wanted recruits, according to Joseph Hastings of On 3. So, looking forward to that. Also, going to have a little rant on the Bryan Harsin podcast and see if you agree with me. So, we're going to talk about all that and more when it comes to Locked On Bama.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. 60 days, and we are practicing football.
Oh, yeah. I love how you always have, like, some kind of day thing. Like,
Yeah, I do.
28 days to where, talking about who's going to be starting. I think that's great. His birthday is.
It's a long more than 10 days from now. Thank goodness. I've had enough birthdays. I need to slow them down.
I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Bama the first place you listen when it comes to Alabama podcast. Jimmy, let's continue with the countdown. You want to do the Bryan Harsin podcast talk first, or you want to do the top?
Anything you want. You host the hell out of this show.
I do. I'm hosting SOB. Let's go ahead and do the top 5 because I think that's what people really want to hear. We will start with number 5, and this again is all according to Joseph Hastings of On 3, one of your cohorts, and does an amazing job. He put out the top 10 most wanted recruits for the University of Alabama this year. We've already gone through number 10 through 6 in a previous podcast, the one right before this one. So now we're to number 5, and that is, I'm a little shocked he's this low, Quay Russell. This is a guy that's teammates with a guy that'll be on the list a little bit later on. He's looking at Alabama. He's kind of odd. I guess it's not odd. I mean, we should begin to respect that some of these players are going to begin putting historically black colleges and universities on their list. He's got Alabama State as part of his list. I certainly don't think he'll end up there, but I think it's great that some of these players are using their brand, their name, to help get attention to schools like Alabama State. And look, even if he doesn't go there, I think just being mentioned with the top 10 is certainly something that Alabama State appreciates. But Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Texas, Texas A&M, and USC, I think most people believe this will come down to Alabama and Georgia. But Jimmy, you tell me where I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong in any of that. I think it is going to be Alabama, Georgia, it's going to be one of those two. I would give Georgia a slight edge right now. It's a long ways from decision day. As a matter of fact, I get the impression, I don't know this, but I get the impression that with Quay Russell, it could come down to December, even signing day itself, before there's a decision. He's really tight with his trainer. That's who seems to be taking him on these visits to multiple campuses. I love this kid as a player. Just probably an edge rusher is probably his best position, but I think he's so athletic, Luke. He could play inside. Just makes him a real compelling kid. One of the best pure football players in the South. No coincidence then that it might come down to the two best football programs in the South, Alabama and Georgia.
At number 4, we have a name that everybody's very familiar with if you've been keeping up with Alabama recruiting for some time, because Thompson High School is a big deal, and Peter Woods is one of the biggest deals at Thompson High School this year. He is a big dude. I would say consider him an Alabama lean is very, very fair. He's a top priority. I do find it, just like with Quay Russell, I feel like number 4 on this list is low, but then when I see the ones above him, I'm like, me some of the other names above him, I would say those guys are too low. I mean, the top 5-6 guys in this list are, boy, it's crazy good. So Peter Woods,
right,
dude that we really want. And also, I mean, if he were in the adult film industry, it'd be one of the all-time better names, wouldn't
it? Yeah, I mean that's way better than Costanza's made-up porn name Buck Naked. It's way better than that.
True.
But look, Peter's definitely an Alabama lean. He's a guy that'll be almost surprising if he doesn't end up at Alabama. I hope my worry is people sort of take it for granted because he's from Birmingham, because he's been to Tuscaloosa so many times, because he plays at Thompson. It just kind of feels like that word I hate in recruiting the most, a lock. And hardly anything is ever a lock. Some of the best, programs in the nation are recruiting Peter really hard. I think he ends up at Alabama. I think it's going to be in advance of signing day. I don't think this one will have to come down to December. But regardless of when it happens, it's such a big pickup for Alabama. And let's remember the nature of this list, Luke. It's 10 most wanted. That's Joseph's opinion of the guys Alabama wants most that aren't already committed. Keep in mind, we got 4 guys committed, like Eli Holstein and Elliott Washington and Jaleel Hurley and Yanze Pierre. Those guys are already committed, so they don't qualify for the list. It's the 10 guys Alabama would like to have most. And boy, when you're talking about a deep year in state, deep year regionally, the top of that list is going to get crowded and look pretty good.
Yeah, and Peter Woods to me is one of the must-get guys because he has been a lean to Alabama forever, and it feels like he's a lock. And I'm with you that don't ever consider a guy a lock anymore because the college football recruiting world is turned on its head. But it would be a major disappointment for him not to sign with Alabama at this point, I believe. So, and I think everybody would feel pretty bad about that. So hopefully they can get him in the fold and sooner rather than later. Jimmy, I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody about betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup between the Warriors and the Celtics, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and, of course, the latest fighting news from the MMA and UFC boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website there. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline is where the game starts. You can even go there and check out futures for whatever, college football, NFL, all that stuff. Then I want to tell you about a listener survey. We have survey so we can learn more about the listeners Locked On Podcast even better. It's your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take your audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and we thank you for your help. And a Ticketmaster gift card would be awesome. I went to Garth Brooks last night. It was a lot of fun. The first thing, it worried me, and we'll get back to the countdown in a second, but it worried me initially because he started out with some song called All Day Long that I'd never heard of before. I'm not a big country fan anyway, but I like Garth. And I was like, oh, no, he's not going to do new crap, is he? I mean, no new crap. And then he went into the oldies, and I was like, when you're Garth or you're the Rolling Stones or you're U2 or you're, Prince when he was alive, God rest his soul, my favorite artist, you didn't have – now, Prince would always make new music. That was his thing. But you could just make a living on singing the 10 to 12 songs we all know and love and never write anything else. Just sing those, and we're thrilled to death. I don't want your new shit. I don't want it. So just a little tip, a musical tip out there for all these bands that are incredibly successful, even without my help. I'm giving you a little bit more help to get even more money. Jimmy, let's talk about the number 3 player on the 10 most wanted for Alabama, and that is Quay Russell's teammate in James Smith. How about Peter Woods and James Smith back-to-back? I mean, 2 very, pretty bland names. I mean, pretty standard American names, all red-blooded American names. James Smith may be the most common name in American history. It's down to Alabama, Georgia is what people think with James Smith, just like with Quay Russell. Certainly Auburn, Miami, Texas A&M are in there, but I do feel like he ends up at Alabama. Jimmy, what say you?
Yeah, probably Alabama. I was thinking, though, when Garth Brooks announces, hey, I'm about to do a brand new song. We wrote it on the bus on the way over here. He no longer had friends in low places. He had a lot of friends in the beer line.
That's true. Well, I thought you were going to go in another direction, say Garth Brooks gets on the mic and goes, hey, testing everybody. We had a new song, but we were listening to Locked On Bama. Luke told us not to do it, so here's time to roll.
No, I'm the same way.
Go ahead with James Smith.
Oh yeah, James Smith. first of all, what's kind of funny about James Smith recruitment is him and Quay Russell have never called themselves a package deal. They've never said, screw it. We're going to college together, period. Call it a package deal, call it whatever, but we're going to the same place. They have never said that, but it is assumed by everyone. I mean, you're not going to find someone in college football involved in recruiting, involved in their recruitment, that doesn't believe that Quay Russell and James Smith won't go to the same place. They've made, literally, my understanding is, every single visit that either has made the campus, the other has been there. And it's their trainer. They're trained by the same guy, Madhouse Training in Montgomery. He sort of, I think, takes them around. One thing in Alabama's favor, I noticed on their last trip to Alabama, the last trip I'm aware of, Mac Wilson was there. Mac Wilson is trained at home by the same group. Mac has ingratiated himself to these guys. And I hear it's a big help for Alabama because, they get, someone in the circle that's been there, done that, and Alabama helped put him in the NFL. So probably helpful. And I think James Smith and Quay Russell are signed up with Alabama. That's what I think. But unlike Peter Woods, if you use the word lock and Alabama when it comes to Quay and James, that's just proof you don't follow recruiting, because that's absolutely not true. They're definitely open to going to someplace other than Alabama. And in fact, if signing day was tomorrow, my prediction would be Georgia. I just think by signing day, it'll be Alabama.
Jimmy, is Mac Wilson a postgraduate Saban bot? Jonathan Allen was a Saban bot on campus. Mac Wilson has been more Alabama-centric while he's been in the NFL than he has when he was at Alabama, to me.
I think you're exactly right, Luke. I think Mac, when he was at Alabama, was sort of uncomfortable, maybe is the best way to put it. But I don't know. I don't know what the best way to put it is. I know this, when he was at Alabama, a lot of people might remember he was constantly on Twitter, Instagram, a lot of social media stuff. And at that time, it really turned Alabama's staff off. I don't think that's something that the staff likes to see. They like a little more Saban bot and less. I mean, Nick Saban doesn't even know what Twitter is. Now, fast forward a few years, I think Alabama's staff has lightened up on that. I think they understand it better. They understand how it can help the program better. And I think they understand how a lot of kids really enjoy their time. Jaheim Otis is on social media a lot. I don't think the staff cares. So I think the staff's changed, and with it, Mac has. I think it's very common for people, once they're finished with school, to look back on school and realize school did a lot more for them than they realized at that time. So yeah, I like that observation. And it is funny. Mac is probably a really good recruiter for Alabama now. I'm not so sure when he was at Alabama, he would have been the best recruiting host, to be honest.
No, I'm with you on that. And I just found it interesting that he is going to be our new terminology for him. That's our new nickname. Young, this is a running back we've talked about that we all believe will be committing to Alabama some point in the moderately near future. And I think he's the best running back in the country. I can't proclaim to have seen every running back, but the ones I've seen, I feel like Richard Young is the best. He seems like a Saban running back to me. Big, strong, fast, and just sort of a power back, but also got some speed. I like Richard Young a lot. Do you think he ends up in this class?
I do. I've officially RPM Richard Young to Alabama. I'm standing by that. And even though I've predicted it, that doesn't diminish what I believe would be one of the biggest pickups for Alabama in the class. Outstanding 5-star back. I mean, I think the best thing I can say about him, and not necessarily going through, the breakdown of his tape, but just the best thing I can say is Alabama has signed 5-star backs under Nick Saban. I'll name a couple, like Najee Harris, TJ Yeldon, Damian Harris, Derrick Henry. There's been a lot of 5-star backs under Nick, right? I think Richard Young, as a high school prospect, deserves to be in the same paragraph with those guys. I think it's fair to say, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Richard Young. I mean, I think he's that good or that talented, has that sort of ceiling. And it would be a really, really big pickup. And all indications are it's Alabama at this point.
And finally, the number one player on this list may be a shock to some, considering we've already run down Quay Russell, James Smith, Peter Woods. I mean, these are dudes that we all really love and like, and they're from the state of Alabama. You would think they'd be higher on the list. But Caleb Downs out of Georgia as safety, and Alabama truly needs one. Look, you mentioned Elliott Washington as part of this class. It sounds like he's all but decommitted. He's done everything but decommit. Now, he may still end up in this class, but I think that, more defensive backs would be a super big positive for the Crimson Tide, and they need a badass safety again, and Caleb Downs fits that bill.
The more I've thought about the Elliott Washington thing, the more I think what's happened there is what makes sense to me is Elliott Washington, who is still committed to Alabama, and he's on all the lists on Bama on 3 and BOL and Bama Insider. I mean, he's listed as a commitment, so he's still committed to Alabama. But I think with his what he was saying the other day, as my interpretation of it is, if you have a huge NIL deal to offer, my DMs are open. So that's what I think he's saying, and it's hard to blame him, really. I mean, but I think that's literally, hey, I'm still committed to Alabama, but if you've got a big NIL deal to offer, hit me up, man. Now Caleb Downs is definitely one of my favorite kids in the class nationally. His film is unbelievable. This is the younger brother of North Carolina wide receiver Josh Downs, who's one of the best college football players in the country. Caleb is an even better prospect than Josh was coming out of high school. Safety, it's sort of like the NFL draft, Luke, where safeties kind of get short shrift, right? I mean, in the draft, safeties are devalued, inside linebackers devalued, offensive guards devalued, and you never see them rated real high. Well, here's a safety, and he's number one on the most wanted list, and I don't dispute it one bit. I think Joseph got that exactly right. That just goes to show how special this kid is, because you would almost, just like the draft, you'd almost just never see a safety atop this list. But Caleb is exactly that good. And look, I think even with stars and rankings, the best way to evaluate a prospect is who wants them. And I think the 3 best college football programs in the United States right now are Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. And what 3 programs are fighting to the death over Caleb Downs? Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. So, yeah, this kid's really good. He's a 5-star plus.
I'm definitely with you, and I would love to have him. I think it's going to be down to the wire, and I'm worried whenever you're battling those 3. It feels like it's 33% across the board, and I feel like they probably feel the same way. Like when you're battling Alabama, it's a tough one. But
my guess is Georgia. But the thing is, much like Quay Russell and James Smith, he's absolutely open to leaving the state. So this is not hey, he's not going to leave home. Why leave home when you can play for Georgia? No. He may very well end up at Ohio State. I mean, this is a kid that he is open to leaving, but for all throwing a dollar in the hat right now, I'm going to say Georgia.
Jimmy, I want to tell everybody about Built Bar. I've about finished up my latest round of Built Puffs, the birthday cake. They're unbelievable. I love them. And now they've got this new caramel brownie. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? We all do. Mm-hmm. What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? So good. What if I told you can have all that stuff, the chewy, chocolatey, the caramel deliciousness, all that, plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck, because that's the caramel brownie Built Bar that you can get at built.com right now. And you got to act fast, because they are a fan that lasts forever. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, the macros are unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built's caramel brownie bar in a heartbeat. I'm telling you, there are a million reasons that you should try Built bars, but for now, let's just say that the caramel brownie, it will rock your world. That's not an understatement or an overstatement. That's what it meant to say. They just mistyped on overstatement. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at built.com. Also want to tell everybody about Locked On NBA Big Board. The draft will be coming up before you know it. You need to go make this your second listen. You can find out about J.D. Davison or any other player that you're interested in, Chet Holmgren, Pablo Banchero, Jabari Smith, whatever. Locked on NBA Big Board Podcast, Raphael Barlow, Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leaf Thulin. My dude is Thief Lulin. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Give fans an in-depth look at the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and, of course, big boards. Follow NBA Big Board every day on the Audacity app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. You can do that. Leaf Thulin, I'm very sorry. I don't really know you. I just know I can't pronounce your name very well.
Got a cool last name, and JD Davison getting a little more first round talk these days than he was a month ago.
Yeah, and that's good. And I want him to get the first round, just selfishly for Alabama, but also for him. I followed him since high school with the AHSA Radio Network, and I'm a JD Davison fan. I know some people feel like he underachieved at Alabama, but you know what? He's only there for a year, guys. He's up. All right, Jimmy, we're going to talk about this Bryan Harsin podcast. I mean, literally, we got about 3 minutes, but I just want to rant. To me, it's just a terrible idea, and here's why. You can't learn anything that you didn't already know, because the head coach is not going to divulge any secrets, anything you really want to know from an actual podcast. This is listening to a sitting president like Joe Biden give an interview about any topic. It's going to be bland. It's going to be cookie cutter. It's going to be exactly what you think it is. That's what podcasts like this are. People want to listen to a podcast like Locked On Bama or Locked On Auburn, because you and I and Zach Blackerby over at Locked On Auburn, we're going to give opinions. We're going to be able to tell you what we really think, even if it's not PC necessarily. We're going to be able to tell you what we really believe. And lots of times our stuff's going to fall in line with what you believe. Lots of times it won't, and it'll create debate. Bryan Harsin, or any football coach, I'm not picking on Bryan Harsin, any football coach who has a podcast is only, unless it's Mike Leach, is only going to be able to tell you things like, hey, we're out there working our tails off. We're giving 110%, sweating through the day, and then he's going to have his offensive coordinator on. What are you doing? Well, we're working our tails off. We're working 112%. We're just giving it all we got every single day. Everybody works so hard, and they love each other, and the chemistry is amazing. Nobody's going to get on there and say, our running back coach doesn't like our running backs, or our linebackers hate our defensive backs. Nobody's going to do that because they can't. Is why you would want this podcast. If I were Bama out there, and some people are saying this is Bryan Harsin's way of trying to connect with his fans, then I would have Bryan Harsin say, okay, I'm going to find me some underling that's an underling of an underling, and he's going to start a podcast, and he's going to be able to put some word out there that I want to give him. I will give him some tidbits, but they will not know it comes from me. And we will be able to do it that way, but he'll also be able to give some juicy nuggets that people want to listen to, because my inclination is, if you listen to this podcast the first time, you've listened to it for the 100th time, because it's going to be the same shit every single time. Jimmy, tell me I'm wrong.
No, I'm with you. I can't imagine that it's too entertaining or too informative, and podcasts need to be one or the other, or ideally both, right? Entertaining and informative, and there's so much the head coach can't say, so I doubt it's informative. And Harsin doesn't appear to be, Chris Rock level hilarious. I can't imagine that it's entertaining. So I'm with you. I don't really get what's going on. Plus, Harsin needs to be doing other things to improve his program other than spending time podcasting. So I don't really get it. I just am glad to be. I'm just glad we have another addition to our proud network here over at Auburn, and Bryan Harsin and Locked On Losing.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, as an Alabama fan, I'm 100% behind this idea, because every minute he does any podcasting, he's not recruiting. Yep. And so and I know some people may come back, well, whenever you do one of those press conferences that Saban got up there and set the world on fire, those are usually pretty, milquetoast. That's true. Number one, though, it's Nick Saban. Number two, Nick Saban did that in a very calculated manner, and he was able to take the blowback and actually came out on top of that whole thing, if you ask me. Bryan Harsin can't come out and say something like that. He will be eviscerated, and his podcast will be over, and he will probably be fired. They tried to fire him with zero evidence of doing anything wrong to begin with. So my point is that if people perceive you as uninteresting, which I think most of the college, nobody's been able to sink their teeth into this guy yet. There's nothing that like super stands out, right? Bryan Harsin looks like he'd be an amazing husband, a great dad. I mean, he's got he's strong physique, all this stuff, but he looks like a guy who would be an accountant. He's going to come, he's going to have a drink with you, and then he's going to go home, tuck the kids in, and everybody's in bed by 9. He doesn't look like a very interesting coach to talk to. I mean, I don't mean that in a mean way. He looks like a great dude. He really does to me. I think he looks like a super dude. But my point is, going on a podcast with anything controversial or against the grain, the reputation of he's just an average dude. That's not going to help that. You know what I mean?
I am Bryan Harsin, and welcome to Locked On My Buyout. I am locked on my buyout, and that's what we'll be discussing today. Joining me will be my CPA and my tax lawyer.
Guys, and all we're going to do for 30 minutes is just say what my actual buyout is as of this taping.
Because it's going to be a couple dollars more at the end of the podcast than it is at the beginning. So welcome to Locked On Returning to the Far West.
Locked On moving companies that don't mind driving cross country.
Locked on
right,
the
buddy.
Train back to Boise.
All right, buddy, that's going to do it for this episode. We will be back tomorrow with more Bama-centric stuff. And until then, everybody, roll tide.
Huge recruiting week coming up. Roll Tide.